So the evolution of the FDA can be described as a series of crisis legislation and then adaptation cycles. So essentially, you have a crisis, and it leads to a regulation coming out to protect future people. So the public health crisis prompted the passage of congressional legislation, followed by implementation of the law by the FDA. So unfortunately, a crisis happens, people die, and then that's when people want to make some legislation in order to protect people. So again, this gives a high-level overview of what happened and what came because of that situation. So 1846 to 48, troops died due to poor quality imported medicines. As a result of this, the Drug Importation Act is passed. Why? To protect people using imported medicines. In 1905, Upton Sinclair publishes The Jungle, an expose on the U.S. meatpacking industry. As a result of this, the Pure Food and Drug Act is passed and the FDA is created. Why? To help protect people from use of food and drugs so that they receive quality product. In 1937, so you have sulfenilide liquid kills 107 people due to inclusion of diethylene and glycol in formulation. As a result of this, 1938, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act passed. Pre-approval required based on safety data. The liquid kills 107 people. Now you need to have pre-approval. 1941. So you have these tablets. Sulfadiazole kills or injures 300 people due to contamination with phenobarbital. As a result of this, FDA introduces good manufacturing practices. So you hear GMPs all the time, good manufacturing practices. Now you see where it resulted from. It resulted from people dying due to contamination. And then you have 1962. Thalidomide causes severe birth defects in 10,000 babies born in Western Europe. As a result of this, the Coffner-Harris Drug Amendment passed pre-approval to also include efficacy data. So you have this drug that causes severe birth defects. Although you have all these rules in place, but it serves that there's no efficacy data to prove that this drug was even going to be good. So you have to have that data before you put out a drug. So again, this is like a high-level overview: what happened and what resulted as a result of a death or something bad that happened from a drug being put into the market too soon or without enough data. You can keep going. 1846. Okay, so we kind of went over this already. So we won't go over that again. All right, so now we're going to the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. So the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 ultimately prohibited interstate commerce of misbranded and adulterated food and drugs. It allowed for seizure and criminal penalties, but it did not address food or drug standards, false advertising, or inspection of food and drug facilities. So the Pure Food and Drug Act kind of just prohibited interstate commerce. But there's a lot of things it did not do. So again, we need to continuously update and improve our regulations. Next, we'll talk about elixir of sulfenilide tragedy, 1937. So ultimately, it was developed to treat streptococcal infections in children by Harold Watkins using diethyl glycol. So DEG is a solvent led to better dissolution and sweet taste. Ultimately, as we stated earlier, 107 people were treated for sore throats. What happened? They died within 3 weeks. The side effects included abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and convulsions. And then ultimately, uh, Harold Walkins committed suicide. I guess, yeah, he just couldn't take what was happening. Going into this tragedy, the company SE Massengill Company only tested the product for viscosity, appearance, and fragrance. As a result of this, ultimately, this wasn't enough testing for this product. The 1906 Food and Drug Act also did not require toxicology testing on ingredients or finished product prior to marketing. So this catastrophe led to the passage of the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So what does the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act consist of? Extending control to cosmetics and therapeutic devices. It required new drugs to be demonstrated as safe before marketing. Eliminated requirement to prove intent to defraud in drug misbranding cases. It provided standards and safe tolerances and authorized factory inspections. So it wasn't until after 1938 that he had factory inspections. So again, adapting to what's going on and making sure people have safe product. Uh, so the thalidomide crisis, 1961. So it first entered the German market in 57, and it was marketed in 46 countries, including Europe and Canada. It was administered to pregnant women in the 1950s to treat morning sickness. But as a result of treating these women, you have birth defects in 10,000 babies in Europe alone, with another 100,000 impacted worldwide. So as a result of all these birth defects, it was withdrawn in 1961 due to the birth defects. Some of the defects, unfortunately, you saw shortened arms and legs, you saw blindness, you saw deafness, heart problems, and brain damage. Quite unfortunate. So it was definitely a tragedy. And this is a picture. Sorry if it's like getting too graphic of the babies that were being born from using this product, and you can tell, you see, definitely not good. And as a result of this, you can tell a lot of regulations was put in place to help. Why? Again, protect the patient. Now we're going to the Kaufman-Harris Amendments, 1962. So drug manufacturers required to prove drug effectiveness and safety to FDA before marketing. Advertisements must show benefits and risk. Adverse effects must be reported to FDA. It required drugs to be tested in animals before people. That's huge. Informed consent for clinical trials. Another huge thing. And in 1963, the first GMPs for finished pharmaceuticals became final. So septicemia crisis, 70 to 71. So this occurred between July 1970 to April 1971. Patients affected had been using infusion products manufactured by Abbott Laboratories. It was traced back to screw cap closure for infusion bottles sealed with a new liner. So as a result of this, FDA proposed changes to GMP. So first to focus on sterilization. So filtration, deparogenation, SIP. So wanted to implement sterilization steps in the process. And terms such as validation, qualification, and protocol were introduced. So validation wasn't really introduced until 1976. 78, revised GMPs, validation was defined, what must be validated, and the benefits to manufacturers. These were defined in 1978. And here we're going to what's going on from 80 to 2011. So in 1980, the FDA began publishing guidance documents. So to help manufacturers know and know how to validate and what to validate. In 87, guideline on general principles of process validation. 2002, pharmaceutical CGMPs for the 21st century, a risk-based approach. Uh, so, new concept of using a risk-based approach. Um, a lot of companies want to see, uh, they want to focus their validation on the most impacted product. So you want to see what's mostly at risk and what the criticality is and what needs to be validated. So you want to spend more time on your high risk product versus your low risk. So that's kind of what this is about. 2004, guidance for industry, steroid drug products produced by aseptic processing. 2007, pharmaceutical quality for the 21st century, a risk-based approach progress report. 2006, guidance and quality system approach. 2011, revision of 1987 document, guidance for industry process validation, general principles and practices. So what is a guidance document? So a guidance document represents the FDA's current thinking on a topic, and it allows you to use an alternative approach if the approach satisfies the requirements on the applicable statutes and regulations. So a guidance document ultimately is the current thinking from the FDA, and it allows you to use this approach in your facility, or you can use an alternative approach if it satisfies the requirements. So guidance documents. There are over 2,000 guidance documents published available from the FDA's website. So if you want to see an example of one, you go on the FDA's website and pull up a guidance document. These documents include, but are not limited to, design, production, labeling, promotion, manufacturing, and testing of regulated products. So it kind of goes over the whole nine of from design to manufacturing to labeling to promoting the product. It tells you what to do and what not to do. So it's a question to keep you thinking. First one is significant events were usually the reason for a change in regulations, true or false? And then second question, validation was first defined in the Kaufman-Harris Amendments, the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, or GMP's 1978. So again, something to think about, and thank you again for attending this lecture. Hope you guys have a good day, and feel free to ask me any questions you may have as a result of this lecture.